Hey, what's going on, everybody? Miguel Quiles here. I am on the streets of New York City, and I'm going to be giving you guys some tips for getting professional quality results out of a point-and-shoot camera. It would be really nice if it wasn't just me out here on the streets, so I don't know, maybe I'll find some like big YouTuber just walking around the streets here, and maybe they'll want to collab. I don't know. Who's this guy? Hold on, are you Taylor Jackson? Holy cow, it's good to run into you. It was so random. I just picked this spot and you were here. It's
fate.
Yeah, it's fate. Fate has brought us together. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna give tips for getting pro quality results out of a small point and shoot camera. Do you think you're ready for that?
I was born ready.
I was born ready too. So let's walk around, let's go and share these tips. Just the tip. So let's talk about tip number one, which is to make sure that you're shooting in good light. Not just any light, but just, I guess, light in general. You need a lot of light to shoot with a small point and shoot camera. The sensors on these things are not very big in general. We're shooting with our RX100 Mark V. It does have a 1-inch sensor, so it does gather a little bit more light than your typical kind of traditional point and shoot cameras, but it's still a 1-inch sensor. It's not going to work very good if you're shooting in low light situations. So what I would recommend to you is find good light, lots of light if at all possible, and put your subjects there, or whether it's people, places, things, whatever it is, just make sure that there's plenty of light so that your camera can gather all of that data. What would you say?
The one thing that I would stay away from with a smaller point and shoot style camera is any sort of real mixed lighting scenarios. So if you're inside and there's kind of pot lights or fluorescent lights mixed with daylight, it does make it a lot harder on the camera, and the images just are not going to be as good. So when you can isolate a single lighting source, usually daylight, we're in the shade right here, this is really good light. But anywhere you can find shade is awesome. Anywhere inside by window is also great.
Yeah, there was another tip actually as we were walking to this spot that I thought was a great tip, and we could actually grab my stuff here. We'll follow along. So one of the tips that we had talked about was finding natural reflectors, and we just happen to have this big white truck here, and I'm guessing, maybe not on this side, but on the opposite side, we'll have pretty good light to shoot in. So let's see. Yeah. So what do you think? Maybe using like the side of this truck as a reflector to be able to shoot a portrait?
We've made a studio.
Yeah. So what you would do?
Two light sources.
How would you do it? How would you set it up?
Probably never have your subject facing into direct sun when possible. So I would have them facing this way, away from the sun, and just using this as a nice little bounce. And I feel like I can't see myself, but I would suspect if you're taking my photo, it looks all right right here.
Yep. Tip number one.
Do I look okay? How about now? What if I I do my best to always stay away from really harsh directional sunlight. It just really doesn't do great things for your eyes. Over here in the shade, Miguel's just lurking
randomly,
around.
Yeah.
Is
See,
it really
look, there's
good?
a lot of lurkers
Yeah.
out here.
This is like good light. It's a clean background, easy to photograph against, and you could easily take this photo with whether it's a point and shoot or a phone or an SLR, and they would all look pretty similar for the most part.
I dig it. So one of the things you also want to keep in mind too, and I've noticed this in some of my shots, this is a really cool spot with the color, with the contrast, especially with black shirt, blue background, looks really cool. But you also need to make sure if you're shooting at a time of day where there's a lot of light coming off of this wall, like how we were talking about in that last tip where we're standing next to that mail truck and it looks great, you do want to be careful that this is not reflecting that blue light back onto the subject. Here it's fine because we're in shade and it's working beautifully, but if you do this tip and you do it where the light is actually bouncing off of the wall and you're like, oh man, I watched this video and Miguel and Taylor were like, hey, let's shoot against blue walls and it didn't look good. Well, it might have been that the light was hitting this blue wall and just acting like a big blue reflector. In this case, we're in the shade. This spot actually is awesome. We need to come back here and shoot some portraits.
the end of every
Wrap squats on everyone. All right, so tip number 2 is to shoot in RAW. So you want to make sure that if you're using a small sensor camera, double check your settings to see if you have the option to shoot in RAW, and if you do, make sure you're shooting RAW, because it's going to give you the most flexibility to be able to take these images off of these small sensor cameras, bring them into Lightroom or Capture One or whatever your program is of choice, and to get the most out of these RAW files that you're getting from the camera.
Yeah.
What do you think?
If you have the option, also shoot JPEG, so RAW plus JPEG, and that way you have easy access to it if you want to send it to your phone, just to have photos from your vacation or whatever you might be out there doing. So you have something instantly, or for clients if you're at a wedding, all kinds of different possible options, and by shooting both you can have the best flexibility of both worlds, and memory's not that expensive anymore, so it's, yeah.
Yeah, so shoot RAW or shoot RAW plus JPEG.
Another tip is to not use the flash that is connected to your point and shoot camera. This just emits a very, very small piece of light. It's much better to use something like a big softbox or reflector, really like kind of any light coming into the scene, rather than trying to rely on this little tiny beam to go out and make something good. It is not flattering light. People aren't really gonna like their photo when taken with it. So find bigger light sources and better light.
All right, tip number 4 is if you have a point and shoot camera that has a zoom, you want to shoot on the long end of that lens. So in this case, I'm going to be shooting a lot of these headshots at the longest focal length, which I believe is a 24 to 70, so it's a 70 millimeter focal length. You're going to zoom all the way in. And the reason that I'm choosing to do that is that it's going to give you really nice compression. It's going to give you a really nice blurry background that you usually don't see when you shoot with a smaller sensor camera. Okay, so tip number 5 is to figure out what the hero is in your shot. It doesn't matter whether you're shooting with a small sensor camera, big sensor camera, you need to figure out what your subject is and make sure that they are working within that composition. So, what do you think?
You want all of the elements that are working in this photo to all feature your subject in some way. Sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you really have to learn how to kind of think in a different way when you're walking around and figuring out what photos are actually going to work. So.
Very true. So those are 5 tips that we hopefully will be able to help you to get better pictures with a small sensor camera. And you saw throughout the video that we were photographing a model, and I'm actually going to have you come on in the video, totally impromptu. But so you've seen Masumi in a lot of my videos before, and we started shooting today without her, but she showed up last minute because it's New York, and that's awesome. And so make sure that you follow her on Instagram. She's got amazing work there. And also, Taylor, where can they find all of your amazing stuff that you're up to these days?
I am on YouTube, which is probably the easiest place to find me. Taylor Jackson Photo, or just search my name, or at Taylor Jackson on Instagram.
Boom. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the tips today, and make sure that you like and follow and all that good stuff on this channel as well. So we got a lot of new videos coming out. We'll probably do another maybe 2 videos while we're here. I don't know.
9 videos.
9, yeah,
9
yeah.
more
Let's just go
videos
for the
coming
gusto. He's
every
here
day.
Every day. We've got like, what, 4 hours? We could do like a couple videos every hour. So make sure you subscribe, because we're going to do some more videos, and we'll have some stuff on his channel as well. See you guys in the next video.